What are you waiting for? Download it and get instant access to Bill O'Reilly, Dana Lash, Jesse Kelly, Buck Sexton, and Mike Slater on your phone, tablet, or smart TV. The best part, it's absolutely free. Watch your favorite programs live or on demand, anywhere, anytime. Don't wait. Download the First TV app right now on Roku, Amazon Fire, Android, iOS, and Apple TV. Just search the First TV in your favorite app store and start watching today. Stay informed. Stay connected. Download the First TV app right now. It's free.
A wise man once said you should do something great every single day before you go to sleep at night, and I have great news for you. Now you can. What can you do? Well, you can watch me. Every single night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on The First. My show, I'm Right, blows you away with incredible wisdom, hilarity, and of course, stunning good looks. You can catch my show, I'm Right, every single night, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you.
Looking for an email you actually want to read? We've got you covered. Sign up for the Up First newsletter only from The First. Every morning we deliver the day's essential headlines and prepare you for what everyone will be talking about. Plus, you'll also get instant analysis and real facts, helping you cut through the liberal mainstream media spin. Don't wait. Sign up for the Up First newsletter right now at thefirsttv.com.
I will say that when you talk to the Trump campaign and when you talk to White House officials, they point to the Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, and saying that this maybe could help them with some women, some of these evangelical white women, looking at this and saying, well, this is the president putting up a woman for one of the highest and most revered jobs in the country. But there are a lot of course, women who are also looking at Judge Barrett saying she is a threat to my reproductive rights. She's a threat to women's rights. And when you see it in that regard, she could be hurting President Trump, and he could then be having even more problems with women.
Yeah, there's, I think, PBS correspondent Yamiche Alcindor telling everybody her political analysis of the Coney Barrett, the ACB, what we're going to call her, because the libs hate it when we do, the ACB nomination. Notice the language. Reproductive rights, women's rights. What women's rights? Other than a federal right to abortion that no one really believes is in the Constitution, but they pretend. Other than that, what are the women's rights that Amy Coney Barrett is a threat to? ACB has had a career that 99.9% of dudes out there in America would be like, wow, that's a great legal career. I mean, now, I mean, before she was nominated for the Supreme Court. And they're really going to try this. She's submissive. You know, she just does her husband's, obeys her husband's will. Like she's some Handmaid's Tale automaton, a throwback to, you know, male-female relations in the 19th century or something. I mean, is that really what they're going to try? I just think that they don't have very much here at all. They're flailing, and they're so desperate to get something big going against ACB. Right now, it's just all desperation. It was so smart. I'm sorry. Anybody who thought putting a male forward for this nomination would have been a good idea. Look, I'm not saying it's right or fair that this is the case. I'm just saying that if you look at the politics, they absolutely would have Me Too'd whoever the guy was. They would have found somebody. Because there are a lot of women, unfortunately, a lot of women who are, adhere to this, modern third wave or whatever it is, feminism. And they think that Me Too is a movement not based on the individual truth of the allegations don't matter. It's a movement where you have to be all in or nothing. You're not allowed to say, yeah, Harvey Weinstein's a dirtbag and should get everything that's coming to him, but Justice Kavanaugh didn't do anything. No. If you're Me Too, you're supposed to be all in all the way. And whoever it is that they're told is a target of Me Too, they're supposed to go after and oppose. And that's why you couldn't have a male as the option here. So we'll have to see. We should also hear from noted legal scholar Whoopi Goldberg on ACB. Play 4.
Well, perhaps if we can keep in mind that the United States of America is made up of so many different religions and groups that your religion is just part of the religious thought process in the United States. So when you are ruling as a judge, you can't rule as a Catholic judge or a Jewish judge. You have to rule as a judge. You cannot bring what you think you need to do, because we're not a Catholic country, we're not a Jewish country, we're the United States of America. We have lots of Muslims, so you can't go by your faith. You can only go by the rule of law here. That's my first thing. And maybe judges need to recuse themselves, because if you are a judge of faith and you come upon something you don't feel comfortable deciding on, you're going to go with your faith.
Did you know that 70% of America identifies as Christian? I would wonder if she understands that. I would also want to know, why is it that we always have to have this conversation about the dogma lives loudly within you, as Senator Feinstein? Oh, we'll get to her mask thing in a little bit. The dogma lives loudly within you. You have to recuse yourself if it touches on issues of your faith. But did anyone say that about Sotomayor? Right? Does anyone ever bring up, did anyone bring up these issues when it comes to a liberal Supreme Court justice? No, only when there's a conservative is religious faith and Christian religious faith an issue. I think that's so interesting, isn't it? Almost like there's not really a principle here. There's just people who are upset that they're not getting their way. Senator John Kennedy down in Louisiana, I think he understands the dynamics here and how this is going to go. Play 8.
It's only Monday. So far, Judge Barrett has been called a religious bigot, a racist, an anti-feminist, a anti-public health. Her opponents haven't gotten around yet to calling her an alien lizard person, but it'll come. Before it's over with, I'm afraid that they'll accuse her of drowning little warm puppies. That's not what this is all about, though. I think almost all of my Democratic colleagues know that none of these things are true.
And yet they'll say them anyway. And I don't think we should let this go. I don't think you should just make this deal in your mind that, oh, it's politics. No. A good person, a moral and decent human being, would recoil at the thought, would find it outlandish that anybody would think it's okay to call into question a person's fundamental character with lies. Right? There is no political party, there's no politician or political motive in America in existence that would make me knowingly and willingly say that I believe someone is a rapist in front of his wife, in front of his children, because I didn't want them to get a job, knowing that that's a lie. There's something really sick and immoral about this, friends. We shouldn't just let this go. I understand we're all prepared for them to smear ACB in whatever ways they can. That doesn't even make it a little bit more okay. In fact, if anything, it shows us how morally repugnant the left and the Democrat Party has become, that this is no problem. They lied about Kavanaugh. They lied about him. I mean, they had people coming forward who no intelligent human being could believe were credible witnesses of what they were saying happened. I mean, the third, Swetnick, when she came forward, she didn't even believe it. Just attention-seeking nonsense. And deeply destructive, but they put her forward. No one was ever held to account for this. Nobody was ever punished for this. So I just think I'm not willing to just part with the idea that anyone who will make the kind of allegations against Amy Coney Barrett that we know are coming, just because it's politics doesn't make it okay. People who do this are bad people, friends. And they deserve your scorn. They deserve disrespect.
The first presidential debate, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on The First.
fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice. When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice.
Durante la cuarentena hemos tenido que ser creativos para ejercitarnos en casa. Por eso les traemos el siguiente segmento con Dani Manny.
Gracias, Diana. Tenemos meses haciendo mucho ejercicio. Como dice mi mamá, el secreto está en el trabajo duro, la disciplina y deliciosa proteína líquida. Enséñales, Dani. Dani, tú puedes. Los están mirando.
Many retailers are moving holiday shopping in an attempt to prevent crowds during peak holiday season. Stores including Target, Nordstrom, and Victoria's Secret are starting their deals earlier.
When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice.
Christian, and that's a problem. Now you flash forward 3 years, and some Democrats are again seeking to paint Barrett as some sort of strange Catholic extremist. You have people in the media doing this as well. We have Senator Mazie Hirono, who said this week that Barrett's religious views shouldn't be off limits, right? That if the Senate holds confirmation hearings, that this is not something that should be off the table. She said, quote, "Why should we say you get a lifetime appointment so that you can reflect your ideological agenda in your decision making?" I mean, I'm confused when I hear this. Are we only permitting views of secularists or people who agree with the senator? People who reject God's standards? I don't really understand, I mean, where this is coming from. But beyond that, is this really the strategy that Democrats want to embrace? To go after people's faith during, I just want to remind everybody, a contentious election season. An election season in which Trump keeps telling all of us and reminding us and warning us that Biden really has this secret disdain for faith. Right now, I'm not saying Biden does have that. He's a Catholic. We know that. But what I am saying is that the last thing Democrats need are prominent people on their side, on the left, openly attacking Christian values, acting as though these ethics, these biblical ethics, somehow preclude a person from serving on the nation's highest court. I mean, this is ridiculousness, and it reinforces everything that conservatives and Christians have secretly feared about liberals. It's the sort of thing that led a lot of people to tell pollsters they weren't voting for Trump and then to go out and vote for him. I mean, that should be a lesson learned. You know, I don't understand what the Democrats are doing here. I'm hoping this is just sort of some random people in media and random people in Democratic circles, because this can really be a very losing strategy. There are a lot of faithful people in this country who do not want to be dismissed or treated as though they're crazy, and they certainly don't want a religious litmus test. So we'll have to see what happens here, who the nominee is, and where this goes. But man, oh man, we are facing a very strange time, and I'm very intrigued to see how the Democrats respond to it.
What are we going to see tonight, friends? It's coming up here in just a little bit, and we've got somebody who can certainly tell us how one side's preparing, getting ready, and viewing this as an opportunity for the president to make his clear case to the American people about why he should get 4 more years. We have Hogan Gidley with us now. He is the national press secretary for the Trump campaign. Hogan, great to have you on.
Oh, Buck, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
So what are we going to see tonight from this president? I mean, I know he's going to be giving us his pitch, but give us a preview of how the president's going to explain to those undecideds why he should get those 4 more years.
Well, elections are about choices, and what you have with Donald Trump is a 47-month-long career in politics of record-setting successes. What you have with Joe Biden is a 47-year-long record of failure in politics. Nothing Joe Biden ever accomplished in the past went to improve the lives of the American people. It shuttered 60,000 manufacturing plants, for example, 850,000 jobs gone because of his embrace of that horrific NAFTA deal. His decisions with China, giving them favored nation status and their entry into the WTO, cost American workers 3.5 million jobs that went straight to that communist nation. That's all on Joe Biden's watch. And what he's trying to sell to the American people is that all of a sudden, after 50 years of this failure, half of a century's worth of doing nothing for you, now I'm going to start working on your behalf. I don't think the American people are going to buy what Joe Biden is selling. But for the president, as he talks directly to the American people, it's incumbent upon him to remind them just how bad off people were with those depressed wages, some of the information I just cited under Joe Biden's policies, and how fast and how quickly President Trump rebuilt this economy. In just a few years, we had more jobs than there were people to fill them. African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, and women were employed at record numbers. We had cut taxes. We rebuilt the military. He defeated ISIS, made trade deals that actually benefited American workers for the first time in decades. The forgotten men and women of this country were forgotten no more. This president accomplished all that. And one more thing is he points to the future of the nation, something Joe Biden and Democrats can't talk about, because for 4 days in their convention, they basically tried to sell the American people that America is inherently evil. It's the cause of the world's problems. We don't believe that. That's a flat-out lie. And this country is great. And we had difficulties, of course, but we come out of those difficulties together stronger because we have fought through them as Americans. This is the greatest idea ever realized. This country is a force for good, of strength, of freedom all over the world. And the president will point to the fact that his policies made people's lives better in a country that affords them the opportunities that they could never get anywhere else on the planet.
We're speaking to Hogan Gidley, National Press Secretary for the Trump campaign. Hogan, Chris Wallace from Fox is a moderator tonight, and look, he's built a long-standing reputation for asking questions of both sides that could be called challenging. One area where he's expected to challenge the president on his record is going to be on the response to COVID-19. And I think the Democrats believe, especially with the change in perception around BLM and the riots this summer, that the COVID response is the single area they can drill down the most and perhaps have to have the biggest gains among those undecided voters. How is the president going to frame and not just defend, but really just expand upon the good decisions that he made in his response to the COVID pandemic? I mean, what's his case going to be?
Well, what we know is that this pandemic has killed more than 200,000 people in this country. It was unleashed by China on America. It was unprecedented. It was unforeseen what that communist nation was going to do to the world, not just this country. And the president's going to hold them to account. We already know Joe Biden wouldn't do that. He said he'd relieve tariffs on China and not punish them at all for their decision. He'd even give money back to the World Health Organization, which the president rightly stripped away because they were complicit in lying to the world about this pandemic. But we know for a fact it would be worse under Joe Biden because he said he would never have canceled flights from China and from Europe. Doctors Fauci, Birx, Hahn, Redfield all came forward and said that one decision by this president saved countless lives in this country. One death is too many. One death is tragic. 200,000+ is a horrific thing in this country. But early estimates were 2.5 million people dead. It's because of this president's leadership, because he was able to rebuild the stockpile and give all of the states the PPE, the gloves, the gowns, the masks, the ventilators. All the Democrat governors said how powerfully this president led them through this and gave them every single thing they needed. Joe Biden left the stockpile depleted. And by the way, one of the reasons we didn't have any of the stuff in the stockpile was because guess who's in charge of producing all of it? China, because of what Joe Biden did with those trade policies that let China run the market. So we had to develop public-private partnerships in this country. The American corporations stepped up and started manufacturing the things we needed here to protect ourselves from this virus. Then the president also put in place the task force that met with governors every week to work with them as well. This is a chance for the president to point out Joe Biden doesn't have a clue on how to handle a global pandemic in a time of crisis. This president does. He's led us through it. We're getting a handle on this. And as we begin job recovery and other things in this country, it's the president whose peace and prosperity message from the first 4 years can continue into the next 4.
Hogan, you're out there. I know this is an unusual campaign season, to put it mildly, unlike any other in my lifetime or yours. But you're out there as the national press secretary for the campaign at the events that are going on. We see them on TV. The president is taking his message to the people. What are you hearing? I mean, I'm sure you're in contact with a lot of Trump voters when you go to these arenas, when you're going to these.
Sure.
What are the things that are on the forefront of their minds and the questions that they would want to see answered in a debate like tonight?
That's a great question, and one I've not received yet, but we point to it a lot. And, I was on a show recently where they said, the president's kind of deviated from the safety and security message and the law and order message. And I said, what are you talking about? He tweets about it multiple times a week. He talks about it when he has gatherings for events. And I was in North Carolina with Laura Trump and Diamond and Silk on the Women for Trump bus tour. I crashed the party, and I showed up in North Carolina. We talked to a lot of moms out there, and without fail, top 2 issues, every single one of them said we want safety and security in our city streets. We want to be able to carry a firearm. The Second Amendment we want protected, but we also want federal assets in our town to restore peace and restore order in these Democrat-controlled cities, in these Democrat-controlled states. They say that is a real problem because their children cannot play safely. They themselves can't walk down the street or drive down the street without being concerned for rioters and looters and protesters, all of the Joe Biden supporters out there locking arms, not worrying about COVID, by the way, not wearing masks, because I guess the virus doesn't exist as long as you're smashing in storefronts and stealing merchandise or beating up innocent Americans. But that's what they care about. They really love the fact this president has produced for them. And one of the most interesting points I'd like to say, here's what I hear a lot of. It's not that they like every tweet or love everything the president says, but what they are sick and tired of are decades of politicians talking about doing things and not doing things, being the perfect candidate on paper, being the perfect candidate on television, but not delivering for their family. This president has delivered for their families. They appreciate that. They respect that. They want 4 more years of it.
Hogan, before we let you go back to helping run this campaign, which all the people listening right now are hoping you're successful in doing, myself included. So I just want to know how's the president's mindset right now? How's he feeling? You talk to him all the time. Going into this, what can you tell us about the president's vision of what he's going to try to do and just how he's doing given all the pressure he's under?
He's actually in a great place right now. Really excited about finally getting to the show tonight, having that debate, taking that message directly to the American people. It's patriotic, it's unifying, it's uplifting. You don't have to rely on the filter of the mainstream media anymore. You can see these two people side by side. We know that Joe Biden's been doing this now for 50 years. We know he's had 11 debates in just this cycle alone, beating 20-plus Democrat candidates to become the nominee, and we know that the media is going to cover for him. And whatever he does or whatever he doesn't do, they will say he won the debate. They'll make mountains out of molehills where they need to. They'll make molehills out of mountains where they need to. Whatever they can do to put their handpicked candidate into the White House, they're going to try and do it because Joe Biden's embraced all of those radical policies, all the radical ideologies that they themselves as members of the media love and want this country to be, remade in the image of socialism, if you will. So the president's excited about the opportunity to expose the differences between the two candidates and talk about his vision, not just of the future, but also remind people just where we were and how many successes this president was able to do in such a short amount of time that went to improve the lives of all Americans.
National Press Secretary for the Trump campaign, Hogan Gidley. Hogan, thanks so much for joining. Good luck.
Turn to the First TV for special coverage of tonight's presidential debate. It all begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the First.
When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and Juice.
Download the First TV app right now. It's free. Looking for an email you actually want to read? We've got you covered. Sign up for the Up First newsletter only from the First. Every morning we deliver the day's essential headlines and prepare you for what everyone will be talking about. Plus, you'll also get instant analysis and real facts, helping you cut through the liberal mainstream media spin. Don't wait. Sign up for the Up First newsletter right now at thefirsttv.com.
Do you really believe that Joe Biden will be on any type of performance-enhancing drug ahead of the debates, or are you just joking?
No, I'm not joking. I mean, I'm willing to take a drug test. I think he should too, because he's had a very uneven. I watched him with when he was with, debating Pocahontas and Harris, who treated him so badly. But I watched him, and he was out of it, right? And then I watched him against Bernie Sanders, and he was okay. I mean, he wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. He was okay. A far cry from the way he, you know what I'm saying. I mean, if you look at some of those debates, I said there's no way he can continue. He can't continue. Then all of a sudden he debated crazy Bernie Sanders, and you know what? The truth is he was okay. And I said, how did he go from there with those horrible performances to where he was okay?
And let's just understand what the president's doing here. First of all, he's poking Biden, right? He's trying to get under his skin. He's trying to agitate Joe Biden, and I think he is going to be successful in that, right? I think that is likely to work. Joe Biden's a guy who, you see him, he's done this on the campaign trail. He's lost his temper with voters. I mean, he's really not a very disciplined politician, my friends. He's not a very talented politician. He's not a very disciplined politician either. This guy's lucky. He's the guy who gets the job that no one thinks he should have, but he's just been around long enough. He's just a survivor in the business. There are people like that in the news media. They're just around so long. People know their face or know their voice. And so, okay, I guess this person's good or worth listening to or whatever, but not really. He's that guy in politics. He's just been around the game forever, never wants to give it up. And he doesn't have it, folks. He just does not have what one needs to be president, which is why when Trump's joking about his performance-enhancing drugs, or he's not joking, Trump is serious about it, it makes people ask the question, how exactly are we supposed to think that Joe Biden's going to have the energy and the mental acuity to do all of this? And then you get Congressman Kevin McCarthy, who asks an important question here, or brings up the question of, can Biden, even if he won, do you think he'd actually be able to finish out his first term, play 18?
This is an election not about Republican versus Democrat. This is about freedom versus socialism. Even President Obama said there is no difference between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. And think of this. For the last 14 days, 7 of those 14, Joe Biden has called a lid in the morning. I'm not sure about what's going on with him, but it concerns me because I've watched our current president be able to go to 3 different states in one day, name a Supreme Court justice, have peace in the Middle East even closer, all within 1 or 2 days. And Joe Biden can't even decide whether he can talk to the American people or the press. That is not somebody who could withstand the office of the presidency and make the decisions we need.
You have to remember, the Democrats who hate Trump don't care if Joe Biden can't actually do the job. All they care about is that Trump doesn't have the job and that there's a Democrat in that role. And then they will mold and shift and coerce and demand from that Democrat what they need. So don't think that there's some common ground we hold with them on this. No, not at all. In fact, if anything, they're just committed to doing whatever it takes saying whatever it takes. Here's Kamala Harris referring to Trump as an infection. Play 12.
But we will not give up, and we will not give in. We will not let the infection that President Trump has injected into the presidency and into Congress, that has paralyzed our politics and pitted Americans against each other, spread to the United States Supreme Court.
She's just not a very good politician, friends. She's just not very likable. But I know, people are going to say otherwise. And Democrats, of course, are going to say otherwise. I don't think much is going to change here. All right, I've got a little bit of switching gears here before we get into roll call. I swear, this guy Fauci, he's not going to be happy until he truly ruins the country. I'm already seeing in New York every day now the drumbeat of we're going to lock down, and you're going to see the blue states are going to want to do lockdowns in advance of pandemic surges to prevent the surge. But so that just means now we're locked. We went from quarantine the sick to quarantine everybody to now quarantine everybody in advance of there being that many sick people in the first place. And when is this going to end? The answer is if we allow it to continue like this, I don't know if it's ever going to end. I think you're going to be told to wear masks during flu season now, and everyone's going to be paranoid. We have to just say, enough. They've even told you a vaccine is not going to be the end of it for them. So if a vaccine doesn't make this thing stop, what does? Make these lockdowns stop, I mean. Here is Fauci on exactly what I'm saying. It's time to double down. We need to double down here, the mitigation and the effects of the masks. It's really important. I've seen these reports on Fox. It's not nice what they're saying about. We'll get into all that. Play 7.
What you make of Florida's decision to ease those restrictions, opening up bars and restaurants?
Well, that is very concerning to me. I mean, we have always said that, myself and Dr. Deborah Birx, who's the coordinator of the task force, that is something we really need to be careful about, because when you're dealing with community spread and you have the kind of congregate setting where people get together, particularly without masks, you're really asking for trouble. Now's the time, actually, to double down a bit. And I don't mean close. When I say that, people get concerned that we're talking about shutting down. We're not talking about shutting anything down. We're talking about common sense type of public health measures that we've been talking about all along.
I want you to remember this, because that same voice that's talking about not shutting down, within 60 days, he's going to be saying, we got to shut down. I looked at the data. We got to shut down. This is all this guy does. That's all he does. What's the advice that he gives people that's helpful? No, nothing. He just takes the worst possible scenario and then demands the most extreme response to it, and always feels like he's some kind of a hero, and doesn't like anyone else bringing up that there's been a lot of bad ideas, bad thoughts, bad policy in this whole process. Play 6.
Some of the media that I deal with really kind of, I wouldn't say distort things, but certainly give opposing perspectives on what seems to be a pretty obvious fact. If you listen to Fox News, with all due respect to the fact that they do have some good reporters, some of the things that they report there are outlandish, to be honest with you. I'm concerned that sometimes things are said that are really taken either out of context or are actually incorrect.
What exactly is incorrect that has been reported on Fox? I think he should say it, right? You're going to call out the only non-lib news channel with full spectrum cable distribution of the country. And you're a public health expert. You're like the public health dictator now. What are they saying that's not true? I think we're talking about debates. I think the American people deserve another debate. I think we should forget about these COVID task force updates from Birx and Fauci and all that. I want to have Fauci with whatever paper and preparation he wants, debating Scott Atlas, Dr. Atlas, with whatever paper and preparation he wants, and see who the American people believe. That's the debate I want to see after tonight.
Hey, Bill O'Reilly here, reminding you to watch the No Spin News right here on the First TV every night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Now more than ever, you deserve the truth. Real news, real facts. It's time to tune out the mainstream media and get news from someone you trust, me. Don't miss the No Spin News every night, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Don't miss Bill O'Reilly's No Spin News every night at 8 p.m. Eastern only on the First. This hour brought to you by Omega XL. Got pain? Learn why one doctor said, with my prescription pad, I can't write anything that comes close. Visit omegaxl.com/nospin.
Hey, Slider Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Here we are. It is debate night. Tonight, coming up, 7 o'clock, Jesse Kelly is going to give us his pregame. And then 8 o'clock live, we've got Bill O'Reilly. Then the debate, of course, we're going to be airing here at 9 o'clock in its entirety. And right after that, we're going to go back to Bill O'Reilly for his post-debate analysis. So grateful you're here. And, of course, grateful you're going to be watching the debate here tonight as well. This is it. The campaign officially begins. It's all very exciting. This could be the biggest night in political history. This could be the massive swing in momentum that the president needs to stay in power for another 4 years against all odds. Against all the media and the social forces working against him. This could be the moment when Joe Biden passes out, for the love of Pete, where his mental acuity is exposed as lacking, where his entire campaign crumbles before the American people's eyes. Or nothing. It could just be a pile of nothing, and doesn't do anything, and no one remembers it, and it's just a huge waste of 90 minutes. I want to get excited, and of course I'm going to watch, but I have to, every time I get excited, I've been excited for like a week or two. Every time I get excited, I have to remind myself it'll probably be nothing. I had a pivotal, life-changing moment. May 2nd, 2015. I'll never forget it. It was a day that I and the country was looking forward to for months, and the weeks of build-up to it in particular, but years in the making. A once-in-a-lifetime battle. I think, like, without a doubt, I'd say the most anticipated sporting event in history. It made $410 million in pay-per-view revenue. Tickets sold out in 1 minute. I'm not kidding. 1 minute, tickets were sold out. I had a gala. I was at a gala with my wife, downtown San Diego. Big, beautiful, whole big thing. To my great shame, we left early. We were having a wonderful time, and we had to I don't know, we snuck out to leave. So that I'm so ashamed that we did that. But we had to leave early so that we could get home and watch the big, historic, life-changing Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. And what a boring piece of crap that was. It was the Mayweather-Pacquiao Dancing with the Stars. Total waste of time. I've never had so much anticipation for something, and I just fell for it. I fell for it. I get swept up in it. Never have I felt such a high of anticipation and then had such a massive letdown. And I vowed from that moment, I'll never forget this, I vowed from that moment to never get excited about anything ever again. And I got to catch myself with this debate. Because truly, I'm not joking. I blow this up in my head, like I blew up the Mayweather fight. Right? I'm thinking Trump is gonna come out swinging. It'll be a fury of blows, and Biden won't even know what's happening. Like literally, he'll forget where he is. Right? Like maybe he will literally say, "Wait, where am I?" And the Democrats will just be in a panic. And Van Jones afterwards will be the the sage of truth for the Democratic Party and say, Democrats, fellow Democrats, it's undeniable. This man is physically unfit to be president. And the Democrats for the next 35 days are scrambling to find a replacement for Joe Biden because he clearly cannot continue to run anymore. The campaign's been trying to hide him for weeks, and they can't hide him anymore. He's got this debate, and he's just going to blow it tonight. Look what happened in front of the lights. Wow, he can't be president. His entire 47 years career in D.C. collapsing before our eyes in just a matter of hours. And Trump waltzes in. He runs unopposed. They canceled the election because there is no election anymore. Joe Biden has conceded the race already. He dropped out. That's how I'm building it up in my head. Just like I built up Mayweather-Pacquiao. It's just going to be, there's going to be punching, not a fury of blows, and the fight is going to be amazing and epic, and it stunk. So it can either be this big thing I'm building it up to be where Biden will forget, he'll forget where he is, or Trump will mumble his way through some points and not do that great of a job because he's never really done great in any debate, really. And also Reagan, W, and Obama all did pretty badly in their first debate as president. So he'll just sort of mumble his way through and miss a lot of opportunities, and I'll get frustrated by it. And the bar for Biden is so incredibly low that he could literally stay standing for 90 minutes, and the media will paint him out to be the greatest orator since Cicero. He's the Demosthenes of our day, sleepy Joe Biden. Look, he stood for 90 minutes. Can you believe it? That's probably what's going to happen, right? And no one's going to change their mind, and the media is just going to be total hacks about everything afterwards, and it's just going to frustrate me that we can live in a country where reality doesn't matter, where two people can be watching the same screen and not only have two different opinions. I mean, that's fine, of course, but just hear completely different things. They're watching two totally different realities. Maybe I'm getting too negative here. Am I too cynical? Here, do you remember this guy? This guy was the winner of the second presidential debate in, was that 2016 or 2012? Was Ken Bone in the 2016? Well, that's my point. Remember Ken Bone? Poor guy asked a question about energy or something, and America fell in love with that lovable guy. And then the next day, the media found some old anonymous comments that he put on Reddit about Jennifer Lawrence's nude photos and arguing that killing Trayvon Martin was justified. So America loved Ken Bone, and then we hated Ken Bone. And I don't know if we're supposed to love him now again. I haven't checked up on that. I'm not sure. I bring that up because we're not a very serious people, are we? Right? Ken Bone was the star of the debate. These debates are a very bad way of picking our next president because it's all about the quip. That's what it's all about. It's all about the quip. Everyone's looking for the quip. We got 90 minutes, and the media the next day, after 90 minutes, they're going to boil it all down to a quip. Who's got the best quip? Who's got the best quick, witty remark? Remember this one from 2016?
Can fact check him in real time. Last time at the first debate, we had millions of people fact checking, so I expect we'll have millions more fact checking because, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Oh, what a quip! What a quip! But let's take some self-reflection about how stupid we are as a people and how much the system has so devolved where the winner of the debate of the President of the United States of America will be who can get in the best quip, who can make the most viral moment. And it's not even gonna be, it's one thing, so obviously in an ideal world, the winner should be the person who could best formulate their vision and ideas and policies and defend, blah, 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 right? But we're so far past that. I mean, Ken Bone was the winner of the, so we've devolved it into who can get the best quip. But now it's even lower than that. Now it's remember when Marco Rubio was doing the rebuttal to the president's State of the Union or something, and he drank water a lot or something. Do you remember? I forget what. Remember Rubio like drank a lot of water. So it's not even a quip. It's like stupid. It's even low. You don't have to say anything, and that's what we base this on. That's stupid. This is a stupid thing that we do. Here's Hillary trying to get a quip in 2016 as well.
In fact, it would be the most extreme version, the biggest tax cuts for the top % of the people in this country than we've ever had. I call it trumped up trickle down, because that's exactly what it would be.
Oh! Right off the old dome piece right there, Hillary. Trickle down. So the problem is, these campaigns, they know that the quip is all that matters, so they rehearse the quips. So it's one thing, it's bad enough that we got like rehearsed talking points, now we get rehearsed quips. And it's been like that way, it's been that way for a long time. So Ronald Reagan, he didn't want to do any debate prep. And the first debate went horribly for him. So then he went back and started doing debate prep, and it still went terrible. And the campaign team actually started to panic. So they brought in Roger Ailes to watch one of the practice sessions. And Roger Ailes said it was very obvious that Ronald Reagan did not want to be doing this. And they asked a question to the person who was sitting in for Mondale, and that guy, he was a congressman, that guy gave a perfect answer. It's like a perfect, flawless answer. And Reagan's rebuttal, according to Ailes, was ad-libbed and fumbled. And Ailes told the campaign, he said, this next debate's going to be a disaster if you keep this up. So Ailes, he stopped it. He stayed in the middle of the debate prep. He canceled the whole thing and said, everybody go home. And he spent 30 minutes with Ronald Reagan alone. And Ailes said, Reagan, my man, you got elected on themes. Every time you're asked a question, relate it to one of your themes. He said, the actual quote is, what I want you to do is get back to your instincts. Just say what comes to you out of your experience. In other words, tell stories, which is what we say all the time. Remember back during the RNC, all we talked about was tell stories, tell stories. So that's what Ailes was saying. He's like, hey, listen, Reagan, just tell stories, tell stories. So Reagan relaxed. He started to pepper him. Ailes started to pepper him with a bunch of different questions, and Reagan's goal was to quickly get to the theme and quickly get to a story. And Ailes, one of the questions was, President Reagan, some people say you're too old for the job. That's what Ailes asked him. And Reagan smiled and said, well, actually, Roger, there's an old line that I've used before. Here it is in action.
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also probably
one of the most famous. We've all heard it before, and it felt I remembered it being very impromptu, but now that you know it was rehearsed, it seems very rehearsed. He actually stumbles over a word or two, sort of like Hillary did with her trumped up trickle down thing, right? Same thing, Reagan's there you go again line, that was rehearsed as well. Maybe the most famous debate quip was in the vice presidential debate. It was Dan Quayle, and he was trying to compare himself to JFK, and Lloyd Benson said, I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy. That was rehearsed. It's all rehearsed. We'll see if Biden, who's used a teleprompter for TV interviews, we'll see if he can remember the quiz. So, in short, Trump needs to stay on the offense, needs to get Joe to defend the riots, defend the violence, defend his comments on China. In 2011, Biden said a rising China is a positive development, not only for China, but for America, but for the world. Have Biden defend his foundation support for the transition of children, the gender transition for children. Have Biden defend moving money around in his family into an S corp to avoid paying taxes. Have Biden defend Hunter, defend the decades of endless wars that Biden has supported. Trump needs to prove that he's the peace president. Have Biden defend when Trump banned flights from China, Biden called it xenophobic and fear-mongering. Get Biden to defend these things always. Always Trump needs to be on the offense. Get Biden on the defensive because he'll get angry. And Trump always does a good job staying cool during these debates, maybe too cool. But get Biden to be on the defense. And who knows, maybe Trump will get in a good quit. And I don't know, maybe it'll be way better than the Mayweather-Pacquiao experience. Maybe it'll be a good fight. And I can have a reason to get excited about things again. Again, coming up, Jesse Kelly, 7 o'clock. And then O'Reilly, live pre-debate coverage, 8 o'clock. And then O'Reilly, right after the debate, right here on The First. True story. Spread the word.
The first presidential debate, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on The First.
Hey guys, Dana.
When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice. When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice.
Algunos dirían que este vaso está medio vacío, pero otros dirían que está medio lleno. Bueno, tendremos que ver a algunos expertos en el tema. Te invito a verme y a muchos otros en Vaso Medio Lleno Noticias, servido por Toma Leche.
Many retailers are moving holiday shopping in an attempt to prevent crowds during peak holiday season. Stores including Target, Nordstrom, and Victoria's Secret are starting their deals earlier.
When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice. When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice. When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier.
Hey, Bill O'Reilly here, reminding you to watch the No Spin News right here on the First TV every night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Now more than ever, you deserve the truth. Real news, real facts. It's time to tune out the mainstream media and get news from someone you trust, me. Don't miss the No Spin News every night, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Don't miss Bill O'Reilly's No Spin News every night at 8 p.m. Eastern only on The First.
Hey, Slider Crusaders, let's talk more debate prep with John Phillips. He's radio host at KABC in LA. He's also writer at the columnist at the LA Daily News. John Phillips, how are you, brother?
Great, thanks for having me.
Good, man. Good to talk to you. So, before we talk about what Biden needs to do or what Trump needs to do, like, what's your thoughts on debates in general and what we're headed into, what we're about to see here soon?
Well, I think this year it matters more than other years because typically you see them on the campaign trail, you see them talking to people, answering questions off the cuff. They do hostile interviews sometimes. They do friendly interviews that go haywire. This year we've had Joe Biden being an indoor cat where he hasn't left his man cave. And you've got President Trump out there doing these press conferences every day. So as a general rule, I think we've kind of been there, done that. But this year, it's really our first introduction to Joe Biden.
Wow, that's so amazing. That's so interesting. Joe, is it fair to say that Biden's really benefited from COVID? I mean, when it pertains to not needing to go places.
Oh, yeah. Well, he wakes up, he does one interview on CNN or MSNBC, and he goes back to his jar of formaldehyde, and that's the end of that. So this is really his first test that we're going to see live on television.
If I remember right, he did pretty, well, I don't know. How did he do in the last couple debates? Democrat
Well,
debates.
in the primary this cycle, he was one of two things. He either looked like he was about ready to fall asleep, and every time he took a sip of that Avion, it looked like a cappuccino that Bill Cosby made, and he was about ready to start sawing logs. And then you had other times where he was going 900 miles an hour a minute, which is, I think, why President Trump wants him to take a drug test. So you don't know which Joe Biden is going to show up tonight. My guess is they're going to have him very well prepared. And by that, I mean he's going to keep his answers very short. He's going to have a stock answer on just about every subject. So if they bring up healthcare, he has an answer. And if he doesn't like the question that he specifically asked or has never heard about it, he's just going to answer the question he wished he was asked. And the media won't call him out. Neither will Chris Wallace.
So what does Trump do? That's right. I think that's right. So what does Trump do in response to that? So to the point where he doesn't look like a mean person or like he's picking on Biden. How does Trump handle that?
You know, you got to be very careful with that. I know you're in California. I'm in California. There was a guy in the state assembly by the name of Chet Ray who literally had a room temperature IQ, was the dumbest person I'm aware of who was ever elected to office. And he went up to the California Assembly, represented the county where I'm from, actually. And his staff wrote out his opening speech on these cue cards. And he was reading the speech, and he finished the speech, but wasn't really paying attention to what he was saying, and just read it again. And then he was getting ready to read it a third time because he didn't know that the speech ended a second time, and the speaker just cut off his microphone. Well, a friend of mine was teaching political science, told the kids about this. They said there's no way this could be true. She mocked him, made fun of him, brought him to the class to speak to the class so they could see before their eyes a truly stupid person who's writing laws that they have to live by. And he was this sweet old man. And after he left, they said, how could you be so mean to him? How could you be so abusive to this poor man? So there is a sympathy factor if Trump looks too abusive to Joe Biden that I think will play. So you have to just, I think, take the attitude of, oh, poor Joe, you don't understand, but this is the way it is. If you come out and say, you're senile, you're demented, we should that's going to backfire badly.
First of all, I'm stealing that line, room temperature IQ. But second of all, like, what a ridiculous state of affairs we're in right now. Where we're saying, hey, President of the United States, don't call your opponent senile and demented. Play it more gingerly. Jeez. Yeah. Okay. All right.
On that.
What, I don't even know where to go from here. What would be an issue that you think Trump could hit Biden on that would land?
Law and order. because Joe Biden was so slow in coming out and condemning all of the rioters, all of the looters. You had Kamala Harris, who was meeting with the families, saying wonderful things about people who we know are not wonderful people. That is a real Achilles heel for him. And if you look at the polls, there's a huge difference in polls in terms of what the matchup is, if it's head-to-head or it's head-to-head with all the third-party candidates. And the reason that the third-party candidates are doing so well this cycle and hurting Joe Biden is because it gives the Bernie people a place to go. Biden's in a really odd place right now where he has to appeal to the middle of the country, those middle Western states, specifically the single moms and white college-educated women. But he also has to throw some red meat to the Bernie people without alienating either one. That's the tightrope he has to walk. And the issue that presents the biggest challenge for him is law and order, because they're on completely opposite sides on that. And for suburban women, it scares the living hell out of them. I mean, it's not just something on TV that they're watching. That's their pharmacy burning down. That's their grocery store burning down. It's something very personal to them.
Yeah, and the fact that it happened in Kenosha, like that's super symbolic that it's not just in crazy Seattle. Okay, so that's really interesting what you said about the polls that are head-to-head. Right, so you're saying if it's who you're going to vote for, Biden or Trump, it's whatever it is. But if it's here's your slate of candidates you can choose from, you're saying the polls are much closer.
They are, and then when you look at the purple states, they're within the margin of error in virtually all of them. And really, people understand what polls are saying. They look at polls and they say, well, Biden's up by 2 or Biden's up by 3 in all of these purple states. He's got this election in the bag. No. When it's within the margin of error, the only thing it tells you is that state is close. And things like turnout matter. Things like voter intensity matter. And Democrats are very milquetoast towards Joe Biden. People who are going to vote for Trump will walk across glass for him. And I do believe that his support is understated because people know if you go out and publicly say you're a Trump supporter, you're going to get screamed at in a restaurant. You're going to have your business attacked on Yelp. You're going to have your house spray painted, your car damaged, your property damaged. So Trump's support, I believe, is understated for where it actually is.
That has to be true. You bring up like a third-party candidate against Biden, right? I don't even know who that is, right? But the Green Party person. Normally, I totally see what you're saying. Like they're going to split that vote a little bit, 1 point or whatever. But that's enough. It's probably going to be enough this go around. But is the hatred of Trump so strong, so rabid, that even the far left would unite behind Biden, even if he doesn't throw the red meat? Or do you think he still has to throw that red meat?
Well, Trump's numbers are baked into the cake. And don't forget, Trump's poll numbers were never good. They weren't good in 2016. They haven't been good throughout his presidency. And they aren't good right now. But the question is, are they good enough? And when you look at these third-party candidates, you don't have to look at them as, oh, this guy represents the libertarian point of view, or this guy represents the Green Party point of view, or peace and freedom, or whatever. You almost have to look at them as just different names on a none-of-the-above ticket. And the Bernie people who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton and the Bernie people who aren't going to vote for Joe Biden represent a bigger share of the Democratic Party than Never Trumpers do of the Republican Party. I mean, you watch cable news and you say to yourself, oh my God, half the Republican Party hates Donald Trump's guts. No, the people that hate Donald Trump's guts who are Republicans all have newspaper columns or television contracts. He won a higher share of Republicans in 2016 than Hillary Clinton did of Democrats. But you never see Never Hillary Democrats on TV because that's a function of media bias. The same will be true this cycle. Trump will win a higher percentage of Republicans than Biden will win of Democrats. The question is how many of these Bernie people, how many of these left-wing Democrats end up abandoning him for third-party candidates or just staying home?
Yeah, that's interesting. So to bring it back to the debate coming up, that will force Biden to appeal to them to a certain degree. Yeah, that's interesting. We did a segment on this a while back, and I don't want to put you on the spot here. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but we went through some of the different swing states from 2016 and looked at how Trump underperformed against the Senate candidates in those states. So like Trump underperformed Rubio by like 6 points. Something's like does that make sense? Underperformed, yeah. Right? So like right, in the party, like Rubio beat his Senate candidate by 6 points more than Trump beat Hillary. And it was like that in all the red states that he won, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Ohio. It was all like 1, 2, 3, 4 points Trump underperformed. And I use that, I interpreted that, and I'm curious your take, that Trump will do better than he did in 2016 in those states, because I don't see someone who voted for Trump in 2016 not voting for him this go around. But I do see the reverse of that. What do you think of that? Does that make sense?
Well, to a certain degree, you're right. And then there's also another dynamic that's at play right now. Trump is doing much better among blacks and Hispanics than he did last time around, specifically Hispanic men. I've seen any number of polls showing him splitting Hispanic men with Joe Biden, which is pretty significant in certain states. Yeah. I mean, you look at Florida, you look at Texas, he is doing very well because the media and Democrats look at the rioting on TV or the peaceful protests, and they think that Hispanics look at them and identify with the people lighting the street on fire. And that's not the way Hispanics look at that. I mean, they look at that, and especially the guys, they're totally appalled. Trump is doing better among blacks than he did in 2016. And don't forget, in 2016, he did better with blacks and Hispanics than Mitt Romney and John McCain did in 2008 and 2012. Where he's doing worse this cycle than last cycle is with older voters. And that's partly because of COVID. They're scared. It's the one part of the Republican coalition that buys into the fear porn that's being spoon-fed to them on a daily basis by the mainstream media. They think they're going to die from this virus, and they want the world shut down forever. Well, I don't know how you move someone who looks at the world that way unless it's law and order. And that is Biden's great vulnerability, law and order, because he can't come out too hard in favor of the cops and condemning the rioters on the streets. And Trump should do that like a conga drum.
You're right. It's not only condemning the rioters, it's also pro-cop. Yeah, very good. And what I hear from you, too, is that Trump needs to do a really, really good job in justifying his approach to COVID these last few months. That's what I hear from that, and that's awesome. We got to go, John, real quick, though. How's the media going to spin this no matter what happens?
Oh, Joe Biden has a pulse? If you take his pulse and you count to any number other than 0, he wins the debate today.
John Phillips, KABC, LA Daily News, and it's Johnny Don't Like on Twitter. Hey, John, appreciate you, man. Great stuff.
Thanks for having me.
All right, more coming up. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word.
Turn to the First TV for special coverage of tonight's presidential debate. It all begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the First.
When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice.
In our travel segment tonight, we are going to Logan Hansen, who has made the all-day trek to the middle of nowhere. Logan?
When you're out in the wild, you need sustenance, energy, and plenty of vitamins. Dad! Can't you see I'm doing my segment here? In the wild! Gotta go.
Well, it seems Logan's having some technical difficulties.
Many retailers during peak holiday season. Stores including Target, Nordstrom, and Victoria's Secret are starting their deals earlier.
When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and juice.
Be a spin. Don't wait. Sign up for the Up First newsletter right now at thefirsttv.com.
Hey, Senator Crusaders, it is debate night. Glad you're here. Our coverage begins coming up, 7 o'clock. Jesse Kelly, followed by the one and only Bill O'Reilly. And then we're going to be airing the entire debate right here live on the first. And then Bill O'Reilly has his live post-debate coverage, all here on the first. I'm grateful you're here. Also grateful for our next guest, Brandon Tatum, former Arizona police officer, founder of the TatumReport.com, and you got to go to his Twitter. You got to follow him there, The Officer Tatum. Brandon, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Man, really good to talk to you. And I wanted to talk to you at length today about Breonna Taylor, because you've been doing an amazing job covering that story, and I'm grateful for you. But we got to talk debate today, so maybe we can come back another day and talk about Breonna, because it looks like the AG said they're going to release the tapes from the grand jury. So what do you think about that, real quick, potentially releasing the tapes?
I think it's fair. I mean, you can release, to have more transparency, but it's not going to change anything because Kenneth Walker admitted that he shot a police officer with the presumption that he didn't know who was coming into his house. He didn't know that they were exercising or executing a warrant. So nothing's going to change, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's still amazing to me that people still think they got the wrong house. That's amazing. Like, they're so wrong in the facts. They still think it was the wrong house. Alas, we just talked to John Phillips, and he said tonight the number one thing Trump's got to do to land against Biden is to talk about law and order. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's one unique strategy that he has, because we look at what the country is going through, and we look at the stance that President Trump has taken, and he's been taking a strong stance on law and order a very long time ago. And I think that Joe Biden has taken a weak stance, or not a stance at all, when it comes to these riots and people are burning down buildings and stuff in the name of unlawfulness, not in the name of criminal justice reform, but in the name of unlawfulness. So I think if President Trump is calm, cool and collected, hit Joe Biden with stats, hit Joe Biden with his own words, I think that he'll do a tremendous job in that area.
Yeah, so Biden will say something like, "Oh no, I condemn the violence, and I've condemned it. I've condemned the violence, and I've condemned it." What do you think Trump should say back to that?
Well, he should say, "Well, when did you condemn it? After the chop went down in Washington? When did you condemn it? After they burned and looted around the country for months on end? Did you condemn anything in Portland, Oregon, when they're protesting, or at least they're rioting and burning down their own city for 90 plus days? At what point have you taken a stance? And you've taken a stance because it's politically correct when you saw the polls going down. But you don't really care about law and order. You would have took a stance before I did. If President Trump come out and say that, then, hey, I think that it'll make Biden, or put Biden on the coals, and he'll have to be pressured into making a unique answer.
I remember when Trump eventually ended up sending in federal troops to, I think it was Portland. Nancy Pelosi called them stormtroopers. So even when Trump was able to take a hard stance, he was criticized for doing so. I hope Trump brings that up as well. What's your pulse, your finger on the pulse of people say when it comes to viewing these riots? What are people thinking? Like, are they blaming Democrats? Are they blaming are they making it political in their analysis of it? Or are they just like, oh, our country's going to heck in a handbasket and let's blame Trump for that? How do you think most people are viewing this?
I think most people are looking at the Democrats, and they're looking at Democrats on the local level. We don't have any problems here in the state of Arizona. But when we look at Oregon, it's like, what's going on there? And the people who live in Oregon, who live in Portland, Oregon, they're feeling the same thing. And they're like, okay, our leaders are incompetent. And when people around the country are looking at it, they go, the people in Oregon and Portland, Oregon are incompetent. And so therefore you say, okay, what are these Democrats thinking? Why is this only happening in Democratic-run cities? And so people begin to wake up, and I think they can see it clear as the noonday sun. I don't know if it made it to Trump, Biden at this point for most people. But you can rest assured that there are some people that are going to blame Trump, and there are some people that are going to look at Joe Biden, even though he's not the president, and blame him for the chaos that's going on.
I hope people see it as a local issue, because it is. It definitely is. I heard the Democrats try to blame Trump for this stuff, because they'll be like, oh, this is Trump's America. And it's like, no, it's the Democrats' Portland. I think people can put that together. I hope so. Can you speak to Lancaster for a second? As you were talking, I just thought of Lancaster, because the riots in Lancaster lasted for about, 12 hours, and that was it. What did they do that was so different from Portland?
I think that when you take a strong stance against individuals and let them know that we're not going to tolerate this for long periods of time, then I think people begin to back down. You have to be able to stand up for your city. Portland is encouraging these things to happen, right? When they come out and they burn stuff and they storm the city and they try to take over the Capitol building, the mayor and others are encouraging them and saying, no, they're peacefully protesting. These people deserve to have a voice. They're not even talking about people getting killed in these scenarios. So when you have someone that stand up strong against it and you say, okay, we'll let people peacefully protest, but at the point in which you begin to hurt other people, violate other people's constitutional rights, damage property, and create chaos, you're no longer exercising your First Amendment right. Now it's time for us to take a strong stance.
And Lancaster came down with, among other things, $1 million bail. Can you speak to that for a second from a police officer standpoint? Like, what's the difference practically between like California and New York, which are like no bail now, and on top of that, no bail because of COVID, right? But it's like no bail states and cities versus $1 million bail in Lancaster. What's the practical difference on the street when you have those different approaches?
Well, look, it's kind of like having a child, and you're rearing a child. You're an adult. You're the father, and then the child acts out of control, and you give them punishment, right? Reasonable punishment, whether it be spanking and timeout, or whatever the case may be, a reasonable punishment. And no bail is like your kid running crazy around the house, cussing you out, and you say nothing. You just, oh, little Johnny, it's okay. That's the difference in a more human sense. But when you have people who know that if they get in trouble and go to jail, they will be held accountable, they're less likely to do some of these things. They're less likely to be bold. I'm going to tell you, even as a conservative, you can go to some of these places and you say, well, I'm going to go protest and I'm going to paint over the Black Lives Matter sign because I think that the Black Lives Matter is not representing black lives. You know you can go to jail and you'll get out the next day. It's almost encouraged to go out and do whatever you want to do because there's no lasting consequences. And I think the best analogy is like I presented with rearing children. You have to have consequences or people will run crazy.
Yeah, and Kamala was encouraging people to donate to like these GoFundMe accounts to pay the bail for the states that have a small one. Let's speak on something the president, instead of attacking Joe for these riots and stuff, hopefully Trump lifts up some of his criminal justice reform. Democrats always get credit for criminal justice reform, but Trump's done quite a bit in that regard. Can you speak to that for a minute? And is it the First Steps Act? Is that the big one? And anything else that the president's done that he should brag about?
Well, the biggest one is the First Step Act. It's the first time in, I don't know, decades that we've had legitimate prison reform on a federal level. And myself, Candace Owens, and others went down to D.C. to lobby some of the Congress members for them to, or the people in the Senate, for them to vote to get this thing to President Trump's desk because we knew that it was incredibly important to give some relief to people who have been arrested on drug offenses. And now laws have changed. Now culture have changed. These people still spend the rest of their life in prison. But because of President Trump, and it was in some part a bipartisan effort, but the president is the one that signed this into law. When things like this occur, you see a lot of people that have gone to prison, a lot of families getting reunited. And it's not just people getting out of jail, just because President Trump signed a piece of paper, you get out of jail. No, it's recidivism reduction training or recidivism reduction courses that they have to go through to make sure that they don't reoffend, that they can come out and be better people. So Donald Trump doing that.
Give me an example. So like if you were advising the president, you'd say, President Trump, tell this story tonight about the First Step Act, so people can really understand it.
I mean, Marie Allison and others that have gotten out of prison and have had an opportunity to get a second chance. Those are the stories that President Trump needs to tell, because then that makes it personal to other individuals and they can see tangible results. Because the Democrats and Joe Biden for 50 plus years, they do a lot of talking. And not just Democrats, Republicans too, in some cases. They do a lot of talking, but they don't have any tangible action behind it. So when President Trump has done things like that, with the prison reform, it's the first step too. So in his second administration, they're going to do more steps to progressively improve. I mean, he stands up for law enforcement. Donald Trump has actually had the families of people that have been killed by police officers, whether justified or not. he has had them at the White House to talk to them about strategy moving forward. So Trump has not only hit it from the prison perspective federally, he support the police officers, and he's done things for victims that have been killed in police violence. So President Trump should tout all of his accomplishments and also mention that he has reached across the aisle in a bipartisan manner to get some of these things done, because Joe Biden is not going to have that luxury to tout any statistics related to anything prison reform.
That's it. So that's definitely the issue that lands the most. So you pin the riots on Biden, make them Biden riots, and then Trump is the guy who's against the riots and for the police. That's such a winning recipe there. All right, love that. Brandon Tatum, let's come back on, or hope you can come back on, brother. TatumReport.com, and just know that Trump will not wear a sports jacket as good looking as the one you got on right now, and that's a disappointment.
But he should.
He should. The Officer Tatum. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
True Story, Mike Slater. More coming up.
The first presidential debate, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on The First.
When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and Juice. When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and Juice. When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and Juice. When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and Juice. When fruit juice mixes with Perrier, extraordinary happens. Try new Perrier and Juice.
We begin here. Have you noticed, like, yourself getting a little more stressed, a little more anxious about the everything? 35 days now to go. If I could just humbly offer a suggestion to get some of that stress off you, take some time to every day to read a book, read books. Get off the internet for a minute, read some books. It'll bring so much perspective, and the perspective brings peace. And I say read books. One of my dad's favorite Seinfeld scene was one of the Bizarro episode. And Elaine said, Jerry, they read. And Jerry goes, I read. And Elaine goes, books, Jerry. They read books. If you read books, you'll quickly realize that we've all done this before. There's nothing new under the sun. By the way, the line that book's from is a pretty good book to start with. We've had some great analysis so far today on what Trump needs to do. I think he needs to take some time and be on the